Chaos seems to be the default setting of our modern world. Yet a few individuals remain unshaken, their minds a calm harbor in any storm. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. That color, for the relentlessly composed, is a deep and steady tranquility. This is not an accident of birth, but the result of a deliberate way of living. Stoicism provides the practical roadmap to this state, a philosophy of action forged in the fires of real life. By the end of this exploration, you will possess 24 timeless lessons to build an unshakable inner strength. We will uncover how some people transform obstacles into fuel and find peace in the midst of turmoil. What does a truly composed life look like to you? It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This simple statement is the bedrock of a composed mind. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control. Some things are within our power while others are not. Our opinions, our desires, our aversions, these are ours to command. Everything else, from the weather to the opinions of others, lies outside our direct control. Relentlessly composed individuals understand this fundamental division. They pour their energy only into the domain they can influence, their own internal world. The philosopher Epictetus, born a slave, put it plainly: people are not troubled by things, but by the opinions they hold about those things. A disturbed mind is not the result of an event, but of the story it tells itself about that event. Consider two colleagues who both miss out on a major promotion. The first one spirals. They tell themselves a story of personal failure, of being overlooked and undervalued. Their entire world seems to darken. The second colleague, while undoubtedly disappointed, tells a different story. They see a chance to re-evaluate their path, to identify skills they can improve, or perhaps to recognize that this particular role was not the right fit. The external event is identical. The internal judgment, and therefore the entire experience of reality, is completely different. This is the power of perception at work. It is the master switch for your emotional state. Think of a recent minor annoyance that disrupted your day, perhaps a sudden traffic jam or a critical email. What was your initial automatic judgment? Did you immediately label it as a catastrophe, an intentional inconvenience? Now, try to reframe that judgment. What if the traffic jam was an unexpected pause, a moment to listen to a favorite song? What if the critical email was not a personal attack, but simply unclear communication that you can now clarify? The event itself remains unchanged, but your world shifts. This is the first and most crucial lesson. Your mind is the interpreter of your life, and you hold the pen to the story it tells. What if the key to contentment was wanting less, not having more? This is the profound shift at the heart of the second lesson, the discipline of desire. Relentlessly composed individuals understand that their peace of mind is not a prize to be won from the outside world, but a treasure guarded by their own wants. They achieve a strange and powerful form of freedom by aligning their desires only with what is within their control and is inherently virtuous. Their focus shifts from acquiring external rewards to cultivating internal excellence. The Roman philosopher Seneca captured this perfectly. He wrote that poverty is not a matter of having little, but of desiring more. A person with vast wealth can be impoverished by their bottomless cravings, while someone with modest means can feel truly rich if their desires are few and aligned with reason. This discipline is not about suppressing all wants, but about channeling them wisely. You learn to desire courage instead of a life without fear. You learn to desire justice instead of universal approval. You learn to desire self-mastery instead of effortless comfort. Consider the historical example of the statesman Cato the Younger. He was a man of immense political standing and wealth in the final days of the Roman Republic. Yet when his cause was lost and his world collapsed, he chose to take his own life rather than live under the rule of a tyrant he opposed. What is remarkable is not his final act, but the composure that led to it. He did not desire to win at all costs. He did not crave the power and safety that submission would have offered. His deepest desire was to remain true to his principles of liberty and virtue, an outcome that was entirely within his own control, even in defeat. His story is a stark reminder that our desires shape our character and our ultimate fate. Think of one desire you are holding onto right now that depends entirely on an external outcome. Perhaps it is the desire for a specific promotion, for a certain person to act a particular way, or for a situation to unfold exactly as you have planned. Now consciously choose to release your grip on that specific external result. This does not mean giving up on your goals. It means shifting your primary desire from the unpredictable outcome to the one thing you can always control, your own virtuous effort. Desire to work with excellence, desire to act with integrity, desire to respond with wisdom no matter what happens. When you master this discipline, you discover that the world has far less power to disturb your peace. The most composed people do not just accept their fate, they love it. This is the essence of amor fati, a love of one's fate. It is the radical decision to embrace everything that happens to you, not with passive resignation, but with active goodwill. You see the obstacle not as a blockade, but as the very path itself. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire plagued by war and disease, wrote in his private journal that a blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. He was reminding himself to be that fire, to take every single event, especially the difficult and unwanted ones, and use them as fuel for his own growth. This principle transforms resilience from a shield you raise against adversity into an engine that propels you forward because of it. Think of a major life disruption, a forced change you never would have chosen. Perhaps a sudden job loss, a difficult move, or a personal illness. The initial reaction is often shock, anger, or fear. But what happens when you consciously apply amor fati? The story is not about the loss itself, but about what the loss made space for. That job loss might have been the painful push needed to finally start a business you were always too comfortable to pursue. The difficult move might have introduced you to a community you would have never known otherwise. The illness, while harrowing, might have taught you a profound depth of gratitude for simple, daily moments of health you had always taken for granted. The event remains difficult, but your relationship to it is utterly transformed. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me? What strength is it forcing me to develop?" Look at one current challenge in your own life, a source of frustration or anxiety. Now search for its hidden benefit. It may be well disguised. Perhaps this conflict is teaching you patience. Maybe this setback is strengthening your problem-solving skills. This disappointment could be clarifying what you truly value. By finding that single potential benefit, you take the first step from resisting your reality to loving your fate, and in doing so, you unlock a profound and unassailable form of composure. A fortress stands within your mind, untouched by the outer chaos. The Stoics called this the Inner Citadel, a sanctuary of reason and peace that you can retreat to at any moment. It is not built of stone, but of practiced thought and unwavering self-awareness. This mental stronghold is your true home, a place where external events, praise, blame, loss, gain, lose their power to disturb you. Marcus Aurelius frequently wrote of this retreat, reminding himself that now and then to retreat into yourself is necessary. Your mind is the one thing that can offer you perfect tranquility, he noted, provided it finds its contentment in itself. Building this citadel is the work of a lifetime, laid brick by brick through daily practice. You reinforce its walls each time you pause before reacting, each time you question a destructive impulse, and each time you choose a reasoned response over a raw emotion. Consider a scenario where a professional faces harsh, public criticism during a major presentation. The room grows tense and all eyes are on them. A person without this inner fortress might feel their face grow hot, their mind racing with defensiveness or shame. Their composure shatters, but a person who has cultivated their inner citadel does something that seems almost superhuman to the outside observer. They take a quiet mental step backward. They retreat inside. In that sanctuary, the loud, critical voices become distant echoes. They are able to separate the feedback, however poorly delivered, from their own core worth. They can observe the situation with clarity, not as a personal attack, but as a moment of communication to be navigated. Their calm response, rooted in this inner stability, often diffuses the tension entirely. This is the power of the citadel in action. Now close your eyes for just a moment and visualize your own inner citadel. What does it look like? Is it a quiet library, a serene mountaintop, a simple, sturdy room? What principles form its unshakable foundation? This is the space you carry with you always, your personal refuge from the storm. Let's take a step back, way back, and look at our problems from a cosmic scale. Picture the Earth not as a map, but as that pale blue dot suspended in a sunbeam, a single speck in the immeasurable dark. Every human life, every empire and forgotten city, every triumph and heartbreak you have ever known exists on that fragile dot. This is the view from above, a powerful mental exercise that shrinks our anxieties down to their true, manageable size. Marcus Aurelius constantly practiced this shift in perspective. He would remind himself to frequently contemplate the bonds of union between all things in the cosmos and how they are related to one another. He saw his own struggles as mere threads in a vast, eternal tapestry, insignificant on their own but part of a magnificent whole. When you feel overwhelmed by a looming work deadline or a personal conflict that seems all-consuming, practice this mental ascent. Rise above your desk, above your city, until the entire planet spins beneath you. That project, that urgent email, that difficult conversation, from here it vanishes. It is a tiny flicker in one brief life among billions. This does not make your efforts meaningless. Instead, it frames them properly. The deadline is important, but it is not the center of the universe. This perspective drains the panic and drama from a situation, leaving only the essential task to be done with focus and calm. The weight you felt was an illusion of proximity. Try this with a current worry. Project yourself into the future 1 year from today and look back at this present moment. How much will this problem truly matter? Will you even remember the specific details of your anxiety? Most of the time, the answer is a quiet and liberating no. This cosmic detachment is not about indifference, but about clarity. It returns you to your life with a lighter heart and a clearer mind, ready to engage with the world not as a series of emergencies, but as a participant in something grand and enduring. Composed people don't hope for the best, they prepare for the worst. This proactive stance is the core of Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. It is a deliberate mental rehearsal of potential setbacks, not to dwell on misery, but to disarm the future of its power to surprise and terrify you. The Stoic philosopher Seneca advised us to rehearse in our minds exile, torture, war, and shipwreck. He was not cultivating fear, but freedom from it. He explained that the person who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive. By facing potential losses in your mind, you build a callus of courage around your spirit. When you have already walked through the scenario of a project failing or a difficult conversation turning sour, the real event, if it comes, feels familiar and manageable. It loses its sting. Think of a musician about to walk on stage for a critical performance. A hopeful person might simply cross their fingers and wish for no mistakes. A composed individual, however, will have spent time the night before quietly sitting and visualizing the performance. They picture a string breaking. They feel the initial jolt, then see themselves calmly signaling to their accompanist, swapping the instrument, and continuing without missing a beat. They imagine the sound of a cough from the audience during their most delicate passage, and they practice holding their focus through the distraction. When they finally step onto the stage, they carry a profound sense of readiness. Nothing that happens can truly throw them, because they have already lived through the possibilities in the safe theater of their own mind. This practice transforms anxiety into preparedness. Now, bring to mind an upcoming event that holds some anxiety for you. It could be a difficult conversation, an important meeting, or a travel day. Instead of pushing the worry away, invite it in. Sit down and mentally walk through the worst-case scenario, not with panic, but with a calm, problem-solving mindset. What is the very worst that could reasonably happen? Now, see yourself navigating that situation with dignity and resourcefulness. How would you respond? What would your first step be? By doing this, you are not inviting disaster. You are building an inner architecture so strong that even disaster cannot shake your foundation. What if you lost everything you take for granted right now? This unsettling question is the gateway to a powerful practice the Stoics called negative visualization. It is a close cousin to premeditatio, but with a different purpose. While premeditatio prepares you for potential future troubles, negative visualization is done to transform your experience of the present. By consciously imagining the absence of the people and comforts you cherish, you strip away the veil of familiarity and see them anew in all their fragile, temporary beauty. This is not an exercise in pessimism, but in profound gratitude. The philosopher Epictetus offered stark guidance to help us maintain this clear sight. He advised that when you kiss your child or your wife, you should remember that you are kissing a mortal. This sounds harsh to modern ears, but his intention was not to create distance or fear. He was urging us to fully grasp the precious, fleeting nature of the moment, to hold our loved ones not with the assumption of forever, but with the acute awareness that this very embrace is a gift. This mindset does not sour the joy of connection. It deepens it immeasurably, removing any trace of taking it for granted. You can apply this to the most ordinary parts of your life to rediscover their wonder. Imagine, just for a moment, that the simple act of turning a tap no longer brings clean, running water. The convenience you rely on dozens of times each day vanishes. You must now plan a long walk to a well, carry heavy buckets, and carefully ration every drop for drinking and cooking. The mental effort is immense. Now bring your focus back to the present. Turn on the faucet and watch the water flow. Feel the temperature you so easily control. That mundane action is now revealed as the modern miracle it truly is. This is the alchemy of negative visualization. It turns ordinary life into a series of small, continuous wonders. So, here is a simple practice. For the next 60 seconds, choose one person or one possession you value deeply. It could be your partner, your health, the roof over your head, or even the device you are using right now. Now, close your eyes and genuinely imagine it is gone. Picture the void its absence would create. Feel that sense of loss, not to dwell in it, but to fully appreciate what you have. Then, open your eyes and return to the reality where that person or thing is still here. See it with fresh eyes, as if you have just received it back from the brink of loss. This 1 minute can recalibrate your entire day, filling it with a quiet, relentless gratitude that no external circumstance can easily shake. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This is the stark, clarifying power of Memento Mori, the practice of remembering your own death. It is not a morbid fixation, but a tool for creating a life of intense focus and virtue. The relentlessly composed individual carries this awareness not as a burden, but as a compass. It cuts through the noise of social posturing, petty grievances, and endless procrastination, revealing what is truly essential. Marcus Aurelius directed himself to perform every act in life as though it were the last of his lifetime. He knew that the constant, gentle pressure of mortality is what gives our actions their weight and our time its precious value. Imagine a person walking into a difficult but necessary conversation. They are anxious, rehearsing defensive arguments, worried about how they will be perceived. Now, imagine that same person entering the room with the quiet thought, "This could be my final conversation." The entire dynamic shifts, the urge to be right evaporates, the fear of awkwardness dissolves. What remains is a profound desire for clarity, for honesty, for leaving nothing important unsaid. The conversation becomes less about winning and more about connecting and resolving, infused with a sincerity that is only possible when you are no longer pretending you have all the time in the world. This awareness injects a gentle urgency into the most ordinary day. It asks you if you are spending your hours, your attention, and your energy on what truly matters to the person you aspire to be. Think about your own day ahead. If you were to live this one day over and over, would you be proud of how you spent it? If you knew for certain that today was the final page of your story, what single phone call would you make? What grudge would you immediately release? What piece of your genuine self would you finally stop hiding? The answer to these questions is not a to-do list for a hypothetical last day, but a blueprint for a life lived without regret, starting right now. Composure isn't passive, it's about right action regardless of outcome. This is the third core discipline, the discipline of action. It demands that we act with purpose for the common good and without any attachment to the results our efforts may bring. The relentlessly composed individual understands that their only true possession in any endeavor is their intention. The outcome itself belongs to the world, to fortune, to 1,000 variables beyond their command. The philosopher Epictetus offered the clearest guidance on this. He said that in every affair, consider what comes first and what comes after, and then approach the action. You must first ensure that your aim is noble and your methods are just. Only then do you proceed, accepting whatever follows with equanimity. Your job is to play your part well. The quality of the performance is yours to control. The applause or the silence is not. Think of a leader faced with an ethical crossroads. They must decide whether to authorize a project that will be highly profitable but carries a hidden environmental cost, or to choose a more sustainable, yet less lucrative, path that may disappoint shareholders. A person attached to results might rationalize the first option, focusing on the short-term win. A person practicing the discipline of action makes a different calculation. Their primary question is not what will succeed, but what is right. They choose the sustainable path because it serves the common good, even if it provokes criticism. They have done their duty. The market's reaction, the board's opinion, the public's response, these are separate events, outside the boundaries of their moral choice. Their composure remains intact not because they succeeded, but because they acted with virtue. This principle applies on the most human scale. holding a door for a stranger without expecting a thank you, offering honest feedback to a colleague without needing their agreement, planting a tree whose shade you know you will never sit under. These are all small acts of the discipline of action. They are done for their own sake because they are good and then released into the world. So, ask yourself this simple question: what is one action you can take today, purely for the benefit of someone else, with zero expectation of recognition or reward? It does not need to be grand. Send that supportive text, make that introduction, perform that small, unseen kindness. Do it simply because it is the right thing to do, and then let it go. In that release, you will find a quiet, resilient form of power. The secret to success is not caring about success. This paradox lies at the heart of cognitive detachment from outcomes. It means pouring your entire being into your efforts while holding the final result with an open hand. The Stoics drew a bright line between our actions, which are ours to command, and the fruits of those actions, which are governed by a complex web of chance, timing, and the choices of others. You can execute a perfect plan and still fail. You can make a clumsy mistake and stumble into an unexpected victory. To tie your sense of self-worth to this unpredictable external lottery is to surrender your peace of mind. Seneca captured this beautifully when he wrote that the wise person loves the attempt, not the award. Their satisfaction comes from knowing they gave their all, from the integrity of their effort. The trophy, the promotion, the win, these are pleasant additions, but they are not the source of their dignity. Consider two athletes standing on the field after a championship loss. The first is devastated, their head bowed in shame, their entire season's work feeling invalidated by the final score. Their identity was fused with winning. The second athlete, while equally tired and disappointed, stands tall. They look their teammates in the eye, acknowledging a hard-fought battle. Their pride is rooted in the months of pre-dawn training, the disciplined nutrition, the moments they pushed through pain when no one was watching. The outcome, a loss, does not erase the quality of that journey. They are proud of their performance because it was an honest expression of their capability and commitment in that moment. This is cognitive detachment. It is the ultimate focus on process over prize. Think back to a goal you pursued in the past, one where the outcome did not match your hopes. Perhaps it was a project that was cancelled, a job you did not get, or a relationship that ended. Can you now, with the clarity of hindsight, separate your earnest effort from the final result? Can you honor the work you did, the courage you showed, the person you became in the striving, even if the world did not deliver the reward you expected? In that act of separation, you reclaim your power from the past and build a foundation for a more resilient future. What if you chose discomfort today to become stronger tomorrow? This question lies at the heart of voluntary discomfort, a practice that seems to run counter to every modern instinct. We spend our lives building cushions of convenience, yet relentlessly composed individuals deliberately step out of that comfort zone. They understand that resilience is not built in times of ease, but forged in small, self-imposed challenges. This practice acts as a vaccine against future suffering, exposing you to a controlled dose of hardship so that when genuine difficulty arrives, your system is already prepared. It systematically reduces the fear of loss and discomfort because you have proven to yourself, again and again, that you can handle far more than you thought. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus was a powerful advocate for this training. He argued that to practice hardship is to practice freedom. By conditioning your body and mind to endure cold, hunger, and simple living, you break the chains of your own desires and aversions. You become a person who cannot be easily threatened or bribed because you have already experienced and overcome the very things most people desperately try to avoid. Seneca echoed this, writing that you should set aside a certain number of days to be content with the scantiest and cheapest food and with coarse clothing. He was not promoting a life of poverty, but a periodic rehearsal for it. The goal is to discover that you can still be happy, still be you, even when your external comforts are stripped away. This realization is a profound source of power. The applications are simple and deeply personal. It could be as straightforward as taking a cold shower instead of a warm one, not as a punishment, but as a deliberate exercise in embracing a sensation you would normally avoid. It could be skipping a single meal and sitting with the feeling of hunger, observing it without panic. It could be walking instead of driving, or choosing to sit in silence for 30 minutes without any digital distraction. The act itself is less important than the intention behind it. You are not trying to prove your toughness to the world, but to train your own inner response to discomfort. You are building a callus of courage on your spirit. So, what one small, voluntary discomfort will you commit to this week? It does not need to be dramatic or painful. Choose one minor convenience you normally take for granted and consciously forego it for a short period. Notice the initial resistance and then the quiet realization that follows. You are still here, you are still whole, and with that simple act, you have just fortified your inner citadel with another brick of unshakable strength. Composed minds don't jump to conclusions. They possess a powerful internal pause button, a moment of silence between an event and their reaction. This is the practice of judgment suspension, the conscious choice to withhold your immediate assessment of any situation. The Stoics taught that our initial impressions are not the event itself, but merely a raw, unprocessed signal from the world. We have the power to examine that signal, to question its validity before we give it our full assent and allow it to dictate our emotional state. Epictetus laid out this process with perfect clarity. He said, "Remember, it is not the thing that upsets you that disturbs you, but your judgment about the thing." That judgment is a story you tell yourself, and you are under no obligation to believe the first draft. Imagine a manager opening an email late on a Friday. The message from a key team member is brief and blunt, stating they are leaving the project immediately. The first impression is a tidal wave of panic and betrayal. The story writes itself in an instant. This person is irresponsible, the project is doomed, all our hard work is wasted. A mind without this pause would fire off an angry reply, frantically call others, or spiral into a weekend of despair. But a composed mind activates the pause. They close the laptop, they take a walk, they refuse to grant assent to that initial catastrophic story. By Monday morning, with a clear head, they send a calm email requesting a conversation. In that meeting, they learn the team member had a family emergency so severe that a polite resignation was the last thing on their mind. The facts were entirely different from the initial judgment. The crisis was a fiction created by a story that was never questioned. Think back to a recent moment where a snap judgment caused you unnecessary stress. Perhaps a friend was late to a meeting, and you immediately decided they were being disrespectful, only to later discover they had a flat tire. Or a partner made an offhand comment that you instantly interpreted as criticism, creating tension that lasted for hours. In that gap between the event and your story about the event lies your freedom. Your composure does not depend on a peaceful world, but on your ability to question the narratives you tell yourself about that world. You are a citizen of the world, not just your own small story. This is the heart of the 13th lesson, the universal view. It is a profound shift from a mindset of isolation to one of connection, recognizing that your life is a single thread woven into the vast tapestry of humanity. The Stoics called this sympatheia, the belief that all things are interdependent and share a common breath of life. This perspective systematically shrinks the ego because your personal dramas are no longer the center of the universe, but one small part of a magnificent, interconnected whole. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this truth in his meditations. He wrote that we should remember that all is opinion, and that each of us lives only in the present, this fleeting instant. The rest of your life is either already lived or shrouded in uncertainty. The span you live is small, the corner of the earth you inhabit is tiny, and even the longest posthumous fame is short-lived. He saw his own imperial struggles as minuscule within the grand, flowing river of existence. Consider a common social friction. You are at a coffee shop, deeply focused on your work, when a stranger at the next table begins a loud, animated phone call. Your initial reaction might be irritation. You feel your personal space and concentration have been invaded. The story you tell yourself is one of disrespect. Now apply the universal view. Instead of seeing an inconsiderate person, you see a fellow human being. Perhaps they are a small business owner finalizing a deal that will save their company and protect the jobs of a dozen employees. Maybe they are receiving urgent news about a family member. Their world, their anxieties, and their joys are just as complex and real as your own. The noise is the same, but your judgment of it has transformed from a personal offense into a neutral event in the shared human experience. Your frustration dissolves because your ego is no longer on the line. Take a moment to bring to mind a minor grievance you hold against someone in your life. It could be a colleague who interrupted you in a meeting, a friend who forgot a commitment, or a family member who made a careless remark. Now step out of your own story. Try to see the world through their eyes on that specific day. What pressures were they under? What private battles were they fighting? What misunderstandings or fears might have shaped their behavior? This is not about excusing poor conduct, but about understanding its source. When you see the person instead of just the offense, you reclaim the power to respond with composure rather than react with pettiness. You act not as an isolated individual, but as a citizen of the world. Stop, breathe. Where are your thoughts right now? Are they racing ahead, rehearsing a difficult conversation you will have this afternoon? Or are they lagging behind, replaying an awkward comment you made yesterday? This very moment, the one you are breathing in, is the only slice of time you can ever truly command. The 14th lesson is the practice of present moment focus. It is the conscious act of anchoring your awareness in the here and now, because anxiety is a debt you pay to a future that may never come, and regret is a tax you levy on a past you cannot change. Peace is not found in either of those phantom territories. It is found only in the immediate reality of this breath, this sensation, this single step. The Roman philosopher Seneca saw this human tendency with piercing clarity. He wrote that we are busy living in time that is not ours, while neglecting what is truly our own. We borrow trouble from tomorrow and chain ourselves to the ghosts of yesterday, all the while missing the only life we actually have, the one unfolding right now. To be relentlessly composed is to reclaim this stolen time, to take ownership of your present awareness. Consider the simple, powerful example of tackling a difficult task like climbing a steep hill. If you stand at the bottom and stare all the way to the distant summit, the journey can feel overwhelming. Your mind fills with thoughts of how far you have to go, how tired you might become, how you might not make it. This is anxiety living in the future, but if you instead bring your focus down to the very next step, everything changes. You are no longer climbing a mountain. You are merely placing one foot securely on the next patch of earth. You notice the feeling of your muscles working, the rhythm of your breath, the texture of the path beneath your boots. The monumental task is reduced to a series of manageable, present-moment actions. The summit will take care of itself when you get there. Your only job is this step. Now let's practice this together. For the next 60 seconds, give yourself fully to this exercise. Let your eyes gently close if you wish. Bring your attention to the physical sensations of this moment. Notice the weight of your body in your chair. Feel the temperature of the air on your skin. Listen to the most distant sound you can hear, and then the closest one. Do not label these sensations as good or bad. Simply observe them as if you are a curious scientist discovering the world for the first time. Your mind will wander. That is perfectly normal. When you notice it has drifted into a story about the past or future, gently, without judgment, guide it back to a single physical sensation, the feeling of your next inhale, perhaps. For this 1 minute, there is nowhere else you need to be and nothing else you need to do. This is the practice of coming home to yourself, to the only time and place where your life is actually happening. There are 2 words that can instantly bring composure to any plan. We will do this, fate permitting. This simple phrase, known to the Stoics as the reserve clause, is a linguistic tool that transforms ambition into grounded intention. It is not a statement of doubt, but an acknowledgement of reality. It reminds us that our actions belong to us, but the final outcome is woven from countless threads we cannot control. The philosopher Epictetus instructed his students to pursue their aims while holding this clause in their hearts. He said that when you set sail for a voyage, you can choose a skilled captain and a sturdy ship. You can wait for fine weather, but you must still make your plan with the reserve clause. You must hold in your mind the possibility of a storm. This mental habit does not weaken your resolve. It strengthens your resilience by preparing your spirit for any eventuality. It cultivates a profound humility that is the very opposite of weakness. It is the wisdom to dance with life rather than trying to command it. Think of planning a long-awaited vacation. You meticulously book flights, reserve a charming rental home, and create an itinerary filled with perfect activities. You invest your happiness in the flawless execution of this plan. Now imagine you add the silent reserve clause. We will have this wonderful beach day, fate permitting. When a sudden hurricane warning closes the airport, your disappointment is real, but it is not catastrophic. The clause has already done its work. It has gently separated your earnest effort from the uncontrollable outcome. Your peace was never entirely invested in the perfect weather. Your composure remains because you knew all along that the final say did not belong to you. The plan was yours to make. The storm was simply part of the deal. This practice builds a flexible mind, one that can adapt without breaking. So, bring to mind one specific plan you have for tomorrow. It could be a work meeting, a social lunch, or a quiet hour for a personal project. Now silently add those 2 words to your intention. I will complete that presentation, fate permitting. I will meet my friend for coffee, fate permitting. Feel the subtle shift in your mental posture. The pressure to control every variable lessens. You are still committed, still focused, but you have created a small space for life to unfold as it will. In that space, you will find a deep and steady composure, no matter what tomorrow brings. What if your sense of self didn't depend on what others thought of you? This is the freedom found in the 16th lesson, equanimity in praise and blame. Relentlessly composed individuals possess an internal scorecard. Their self-worth is not a fluctuating stock price based on public opinion, but a steady, private measure of their own character and effort. They receive both applause and insults with the same calm acknowledgement, understanding that both are fleeting reflections of other people's perceptions, not definitive statements of their true value. Marcus Aurelius, a man who received more flattery and slander than most, wrote a powerful reminder to himself. He said, "Take away your opinion about what gives you pain, and you yourself remain unharmed." What is the harm, the insult, or the injury in someone else's remark? It is your own judgment that assigns it the power to wound you. The criticism itself is just a set of words. Your agreement is what gives it force. Consider the stark contrast between two artists. The first releases a new album to widespread critical acclaim. They are hailed as a genius, their social media floods with praise, and they begin to believe their own press. Their identity fuses with this positive feedback. Then their next project receives a brutally negative review from a major publication. The artist is crushed. They fall into a creative block, doubting their every instinct because their sense of worth was built on the shaky foundation of external validation. Now picture a second artist. They create their work with the same deep commitment, pouring their soul into the process. When the praise arrives, they receive it graciously but lightly, knowing it is a pleasant weather pattern that will change. When the scathing critique is published, they read it with curiosity. They look for any useful grain of truth to help them grow, and they calmly discard the rest as mere noise. Their core self, their internal scorecard, remains untouched. Their fulfillment came from the act of creation itself, a territory that no critic can ever enter. Your challenge is to become a silent observer of your own reactions. The next time you receive a compliment, notice the pleasant flush of pride, but see if you can observe it without letting it define you. And the next time you face a critique, however small, notice the initial sting of defensiveness or shame. In that moment of noticing, you create a tiny gap. In that gap, you have a choice. Will you hand over your self-esteem to this external comment? Or will you consult your own internal scorecard, your own measure of your effort and intent? This is the daily practice of equanimity, building a self that stands firm no matter which way the wind blows. The obstacle is not in the way, the obstacle is the way. This powerful shift in perspective transforms every barrier from a blockade into a building block. For the relentlessly composed, hardship is not a detour on the path to growth, it is the path itself. Each challenge is a form of spiritual resistance training, a necessary force that strengthens your character just as lifting weights strengthens your muscles. Without it, you remain weak and undeveloped. Marcus Aurelius, facing constant political intrigue and military threats, wrote a direct command to himself. He said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He was not merely consoling himself, but stating a fundamental law of nature. A fire uses the very log placed upon it as fuel to burn brighter. Your own spirit can do the same with any difficulty placed in your path. Consider the story of an inventor working for years on a new type of adhesive. Their goal was to create a super strong glue, but their experiments resulted in a series of failures, producing only a weak, pressure-sensitive substance that stuck lightly and could be easily removed. This was the obstacle, the repeated failure to achieve the intended result. Instead of seeing this as a final defeat, the inventor reframed the obstacle. They asked a different question: what could this failed product be good for? That simple shift in perspective turned the obstacle into the way, leading directly to the creation of the Post-it note, one of the most successful and ubiquitous office products in history. The weakness was the very quality that made it useful. The failure was the raw material for a breakthrough. Now, bring to mind one current obstacle in your own life. It might be a difficult person, a financial strain, or a skill you are struggling to master. Your first instinct is likely to see it as a problem to be removed. But what if you saw it as a tool to be used? Ask yourself, how could this specific challenge be training a virtue I lack? Is this frustration teaching me patience? Is this resistance building my creativity as I search for new solutions? Is this limitation forcing me to focus on what is truly essential? Your obstacle is not a random piece of bad luck. It is a custom-made training ground for the person you are meant to become. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Seneca's words cut straight to the heart of our greatest self-deception. We behave as if we are immortal, endlessly postponing our most meaningful work under the comforting illusion of a distant future. The relentlessly composed individual, however, carries the sobering truth of life's brevity not as a burden, but as a sharpening stone for their will. This awareness is the ultimate antidote to procrastination. In his essay on the shortness of life, Seneca laments how we are frugal with our money and property, yet wasteful with our time, the one resource for which we can never earn more. We complain that life is short, he argues, but we are often guilty of making it so, filling our days with frantic business that is devoid of true purpose. This is not about living in a state of morbid fear, but about living with a gentle, persistent urgency that elevates everything you do. Imagine a professional who has spent years in a comfortable but unfulfilling job, always telling themselves they will start their own business or change careers next year when the timing is better. Then a close friend passes away unexpectedly. This jarring event acts as a brutal but necessary alarm clock. The abstraction of a finite life becomes a concrete reality. The following Monday, their routine is transformed. That hour they used to spend scrolling through news feeds is now dedicated to researching business licenses. The evening television shows are replaced with online courses to build new skills. They haven't quit their job, but they have quit the story of tomorrow. Their daily life is now aligned with a purpose that feels too urgent to delay. They have stopped lending out their time to trivialities and have started investing it in their legacy. What are you postponing that you could start today, not with a grand, life-altering leap, but with a single, small step? Is there a difficult conversation you have been avoiding? A creative project you have been planning to begin someday? A connection with a family member you have been meaning to strengthen? That someday is a fiction. The only day you ever truly possess is this one. The relentless composition of a life well lived is built not in some far-off future, but in the decisive quality of your present hours once you finally accept that they are numbered. Your ability to say no to yourself is the foundation of composure. This is not an act of self-punishment, but a form of strength training for the soul. The 19th lesson is the practice of self-denial, a deliberate exercise in refusing a comfort or pleasure to fortify your willpower. Each time you consciously choose to deny an immediate gratification, you are building the moral muscle required to face far greater temptations and difficulties in the future. You are proving to yourself that you are not a slave to your desires, that you are the one in command. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus was a powerful advocate for this training. He argued that practicing abstinence is even more important than practicing physical exercise, since the training of the soul is superior to that of the body. He saw these small acts of refusal as the essential drills that prepare a person for life's real battles, ensuring that when a significant ethical choice or a moment of profound hardship arrives, your spirit will not buckle. Consider the simple, daily habit of reaching for your phone to scroll through social media during a moment of boredom. The impulse is automatic, a tiny itch that demands to be scratched. Now imagine you make a different choice. You feel the urge, you acknowledge it, and then you consciously decide to place the phone face down and sit in the quiet for just 5 minutes. The first minute might feel uncomfortable, even irritating, but as you sit through that minor discomfort, something shifts. You realize the world did not end. The boredom passed, and you emerge from those 5 minutes with a quiet sense of victory. You have just reminded yourself that you are stronger than your impulses. This small win deposits a coin of confidence into your inner treasury. The applications are endless and deeply personal. It could be saying no to a second dessert, not because you are on a diet, but as an exercise in mastering your appetite. It could be turning down a casual purchase you want but do not need, reinforcing your independence from material cravings. It could be choosing to take the stairs instead of the elevator, not for fitness, but for the mental discipline of embracing a minor hardship. The goal is to discover the freedom that exists on the other side of a resisted desire. So, what one small, habitual pleasure will you deny yourself today? Choose something minor but consistent. Perhaps it is that mid-afternoon snack, the automatic click on a news site, or the warm comfort of hitting the snooze button one more time. When the moment comes, feel the resistance and then gently override it. Do it not with resentment, but with the quiet understanding that you are laying another brick in the foundation of your unshakable character. Your most composed self is a person you can learn to consult in any moment of doubt. This is the 20th lesson, the Contemplation of the Sage, a practice of creating a mental model of wisdom to guide your actions. You do not need to find a perfect teacher in the outside world. You can construct this ideal within your own mind. The question is simple, yet profoundly transformative. What would the most composed, wisest version of me do in this situation? This figure becomes your internal benchmark, a North Star for virtuous action when your own emotions might cloud your judgment. It provides immediate clarity, cutting through the noise of pride, fear, or anger to reveal the most principled path forward. Seneca offered this exact advice in his letters. He wrote that we should choose a model for our life, someone whose example can guide us and keep us on the straight path. He suggested we select a Cato, a Laelius, or another figure of unshakable virtue, and then act as if they were watching our every decision. You are not trying to become an imitation of someone else, but using their idealized character as a mirror to reflect the best of your own potential. Before you walk into a difficult meeting where you anticipate conflict, take 60 seconds to sit quietly, close your eyes and summon your personal sage. See them standing with perfect posture, their face calm, their gaze steady. Now mentally step into that meeting through their eyes. How would this wise version of you listen to criticism? They would hear the content without flinching, seeking the useful kernel of truth. How would they respond to a provocative comment? They would pause, choose words with precision, and address the issue without attacking the person. By mentally rehearsing the scene through this lens, you are not just planning a strategy, you are embodying a state of mind. You are programming your nervous system for composure. Now take a moment to define your own sage. What 3 qualities would this ideal, composed version of you possess above all others? Perhaps it is boundless patience, the ability to listen without immediately formulating a reply. Maybe it is unwavering courage, the strength to speak a difficult truth with kindness. Or it could be radical humility, the grace to admit when you are wrong without your ego crumbling. Write these 3 qualities down, keep them close. The next time you face a moment of uncertainty, you do not need to panic or search for answers. You need only ask one question of the sage you have created. Their answer will always point you toward your own unshakable core. A river does not fight the rocks, it flows around them. This effortless movement is the essence of yielding to nature's course, the 21st lesson from the lives of relentlessly composed individuals. It is an active acceptance, a conscious decision to stop struggling against the fundamental current of reality. The Stoics believed the universe itself is governed by a divine reason, a logos that orders all things with a wisdom far beyond our limited understanding. To fight this natural flow is to exhaust yourself swimming against a tide that will carry you forward regardless. True peace is found not in conquering the river, but in learning to navigate its currents with skill and grace. Marcus Aurelius directed himself to accept everything which happens, even if it seems disagreeable, because it leads to the health of the universe. He saw his own life and duties as a small but vital part of this grand natural system. To resist his role was as futile as a single leaf resisting the wind that carries it. This acceptance is vividly illustrated in the graceful embrace of aging. Our culture often fights this natural process with every tool at its disposal, treating each new wrinkle or gray hair as a defeat. A composed individual, however, sees the same changes as markers on a map of a life fully lived. The lines on their face are not flaws to be erased, but evidence of laughter endured and wisdom earned through seasons of experience. They accept the slowing of their physical pace not as a loss, but as an invitation to a deeper, more reflective way of moving through the world. They flow with the current of their own life, rather than exhausting themselves trying to paddle back upstream to a youth that is gone. Just as we accept the turning of autumn leaves from green to gold, we can learn to accept the inevitable transformations within our own lives. What is one aspect of your own existence that you are currently fighting against? Perhaps it is a personality trait of a loved one that you constantly try to change, or a physical limitation that frustrates your ambitions. Maybe it is the simple, relentless pace of time itself, the fact that some opportunities are now behind you. For a moment, stop fighting. See if you can release your grip and simply accept this reality as part of nature's course, as the river accepting the rock. This does not mean giving up or approving of something harmful. It means ceasing to waste your precious energy on a struggle you cannot win, and redirecting that power toward flowing gracefully around the obstacle, finding a new path forward from a place of profound and unshakable peace. In a world of constant noise, the most powerful sound is silence. The relentlessly composed do not fear quiet moments. They actively cultivate them, understanding that this empty space is not a void but a fertile ground for self-awareness and clarity. The Stoics saw silence as a discipline, a necessary retreat from the chatter of the world and the chatter of their own minds. It was in these hushed intervals that they could examine the events of their day, scrutinize their own reactions, and take firm control over a tongue that might otherwise speak in haste, anger, or vanity. This practice was not about isolation, but about returning to the world with a calmer, more deliberate presence. Seneca wrote powerfully about the need for such retreats, advising that we must give our minds a break and allow them to rest in stillness and solitude. He knew that a mind constantly bombarded by external stimuli loses its ability to hear its own inner voice, the very source of its composure. Imagine ending your day not by scrolling through a screen, but by sitting in a chair for just 5 minutes in complete silence. No music, no podcast, no phone in your hand. At first, it may feel strange, even uncomfortable, as your mind thrashes about for stimulation. But if you persist, the storm begins to settle. In that quiet, you can review your actions without judgment. Where did you act with virtue? Where did you let a petty annoyance steal your peace? This daily audit, conducted in silence, is how you sharpen your self-awareness and reinforce your commitment to a composed life. Your challenge is to carve out just 5 minutes today for this practice. Find a quiet space, set a timer, and simply sit. Do not try to force your mind to be empty. Just observe the thoughts as they come and go, like clouds passing in the sky, without latching onto them. In that brief, daily investment in silence, you will discover a profound truth. The peace you have been seeking externally has been waiting for you all along in the quiet room of your own mind. What is the value of a virtue you abandon when you are alone? This question strikes at the very core of an unshakable character. Relentless composure is not a performance for an audience. It is the quiet consistency of your actions when the curtains are closed and the world has looked away. Your true character is not who you are in the spotlight, but who you are in the dark, when the only witness is your own conscience. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught this with unflinching clarity. He said we must be someone good in the dark when no one will ever know. This is the ultimate test of integrity, the final brick laid in the construction of your inner citadel. It is easy to act with honor when you are being watched and praised. The real work happens in the unseen moments, the small choices that accumulate into the person you truly are. Consider the simple, powerful scenario of finding a wallet on a deserted street. It is filled with cash and identification, but there is no one around. No security cameras point in your direction. No friend stands beside you to witness your decision. In that solitary moment, your entire character is revealed. The person who pockets the cash is building a self that is fragile, an identity that depends on the absence of witnesses to hold it together. The person who takes the time to locate the owner and return the wallet with everything inside is doing far more than a good deed. They are reinforcing a fundamental truth to themselves. They are honest. This private action deposits a massive coin of self-trust into their inner treasury, a confidence that cannot be shaken by external opinion because it was earned in absolute secrecy. This is how integrity becomes the bedrock of composure. You know beyond any doubt that you are a person who does the right thing, even when it costs you and no one is there to applaud. Now turn that gaze inward. Where does a gap exist between your public actions and your private ones? Is it in your diligence when working from home, where you could easily waste hours but choose to focus instead? Is it in your diet, where you select the nourishing food when no one is there to see you pass on the treat? Or is it in your thoughts, where you choose to dismiss a jealous or unkind judgment about someone, simply because it is not worthy of the person you are committed to becoming? Identify one of these hidden junctions in your own life. This week, make a conscious effort to align your private action with your public virtue. Act as if your ideal sage is watching, because in the most important way, they are. You are building a self that requires no external validation, because its foundation is laid in the unwavering integrity of choices made in the dark. The final exam for a composed mind is how it faces its own end. This ultimate moment strips away every pretense, every performance, and reveals the core character built over a lifetime. For the Stoics, a good death was not a tragedy to be feared, but the final, definitive act of a virtuous life, the ultimate proof that one's composure was not a fair-weather facade. Seneca, the philosopher who wrote so extensively on life, provided his most powerful lesson in his final hours. Accused of conspiracy by the Emperor Nero, he was ordered to take his own life. According to the historian Tacitus, Seneca met his fate not with panic, but with a calm resolve. He comforted his grieving friends, asked for his will, and when denied that, he turned to them and said that since he was forbidden to reward their services, he would bequeath them the one thing he still possessed, the pattern of his life. His final moments were spent in reasoned discourse, a final demonstration that his philosophy was not just words, but a practiced reality that could hold firm even as life departed. Similarly, Cotto the Younger, upon his military defeat, chose to read Plato's dialogue on the immortality of the soul before taking his own life, asserting his freedom by choosing the time and manner of his end with unwavering principle. These are not stories of despair, but of profound self-possession. In our modern world, we see echoes of this same composure in individuals who receive a terminal diagnosis. Instead of rage or denial, they often speak of a strange, deep peace, a clarity that allows them to savor their remaining days with an intensity they never before possessed. They tie up loose ends, mend fractured relationships, and express love with a raw honesty that transforms their final chapter into their most meaningful one. Their calm is not a lack of feeling, but the presence of a deeper understanding. So let this be a quiet, sobering reflection. If you were to learn your time was sharply limited, what would your final act reveal about the life you have lived? Would fear be the dominant note, or would a deep, earned peace allow you to meet the end not as an enemy, but as a natural, concluding part of the journey you have already learned to navigate with courage? These 24 lessons are not a checklist to complete, but a garden to tend daily. From the fundamental dichotomy of control to the ultimate acceptance of our own mortality, each principle interlocks to form a resilient and unshakable character. This is the quiet power of a relentlessly composed life, a state built not on avoiding storms, but on learning to stand steady within them. The core themes we have explored are your anchors in any chaos. Remember to separate what is yours to command from what is not. Learn to love your fate, seeing every obstacle as fuel, and carry the awareness of life's brevity not as a burden, but as a lens that brings your true priorities into sharp focus. The peace you seek is not a distant destination. It is available in this very moment through a simple shift in perspective. The philosopher Epictetus, who began his life in chains, offered perhaps the clearest path to this freedom. He said that happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. After a full examination of this rule, you will no longer blame others or feel disturbed by events beyond your command. Inner turmoil arises only when you confuse what is yours with what belongs to the world. Your path forward is not to master all 24 lessons at once, but to begin. Choose just one. Perhaps it is the practice of pausing your judgment before you react, or the discipline of performing a single act of kindness without any expectation of reward. Maybe it is the simple, profound decision to remember your own mortality today, letting it infuse your hours with purpose and your interactions with grace. Focus on integrating that single principle into the fabric of your day. Then, when it becomes a natural part of you, choose another. We would be honored to hear which lesson resonated most deeply with you. Share your chosen focus in the comments below and join a community of others committed to building this same unshakable strength. Your journey toward relentless composure starts not tomorrow, but with the very next breath you take.